what are IRR? IRR, as you know, are Internet Routing Registries. So Afrinic is actually operating one, and it is very likely that you have been contacted by Afrinic to actually create your route objects in the Afrinic routing registry. The routing registry can hold several types of objects, but the one we are mostly interested in here is the route object. So route object is a very simple object. It actually says which ASN is supposed to be advertising a prefix. So this is a route object. It exists for both IPv4 and IPv6. So networks on the internet, for example, your transit provider or your peers, sometimes rely on the IRR to actually build filters. So they would use different type of tools to pull data from the routing registries, and they would build filters to actually allow traffic or allow some announcement or actually deny some announcement. So there are a few internet routing registries out there, so almost 30 of them, and they are managed by different entities. Some of them are, as I mentioned, are the RIOs themselves, but some of them are from other entities. So there's a various degree of trust in the system. The most known ones are, you might have come across, are RADB, LDB, or NTT-Com. So as I was saying, there are different tools that can be used. For example, BGPQ4 or IIR tools that are used now to pull those objects from these different routing registries and build prefix lists that can allow now you to actually do your filtering appropriate. So the big question that we have, you might have security check where things are done very lightly, and it is what we have actually seen in many of the IRRs. So this is an example. In the first square rectangle there, we see a route object. Actually, it is a route 6 object of a /29 for an IPv6. And we see that it is actually authorizing AS58-280 to advertise this prefix. And this is actually created in the right routing registry. But what we have seen is that in another routing registry called RADB, a smaller prefix, so a /22 of the same prefix, was created, but not by the same maintainer, as you can see here. So it was created by someone else, possibly because of the transit provider who needed to actually have an object in RADB for them to actually allow traffic to flow towards this network. So they want of who can create what in routing registries. For, of course, the routing registries where the RIOs are operating, because there are checks that they do and that you're authorized to. So we wanted to know what are between the different IRRs and the one that we see at the RIO route objects. So as I mentioned here, we are going to talk only about route and route 6 object. We are not going to go into, for example, AS sets and other types of object. So let me show you some first data that we with RADB against the RIOs. What we see that for IPv4, so here I'm taking all the RIOs and not necessarily Afrinic. So on objects that appear only in the RIOs are around 1 million. Objects that are not matching, they are around 2 million. So it means that they're objects that were found in RADB, but not found in the RIOs. And objects that are matching, they're actually very few compared to the previous numbers that we've seen. 144,000 are actually both in the RIO database and in RADB. For IPv6, the numbers are pretty much the same. Almost 2 million not matching, 360,000 only in the RIO databases, and around 30,000 which are matching, both RADB and RIOs. Let's continue and see what we have. So as you know, there is also the RIPE non-auth is operating I would say a pattern registry where it is actually doing the authentication. So this is source RIPE. But they also have they were not authenticating users to create objects. So this is actually tagged as non-auth objects. And if we do the comparison between the RIOs and the non-auth, what we see is in the RIOs 42,000, not matching in the non-auth 66,000, and the matching is 8,000 plus. For IPv6 is around 1,000 only in the RIOs, 260 not matching. So which are appearing in between the RIO and the RIPE non-auth. So note that for some time now, RIPE is not allowing users to create non-auth objects. So you need to be a member of RIPE to be able to create
Amrish?
those objects in. Yes?
Excuse me to interrupt you. The line is breaking. Maybe it would be better if you cut your camera, please. You stop your camera.
Okay.
Merci. Thank you.
I hope the line will get better. Can you hear me still?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
You can continue.
Okay.
Thank you.
So at the Internet Society, we have developed a tool called Route Check. So when Magali will share the slides, we'll have the link where you can have a look at the data that we are producing. We generate the data twice a month, and it's all, and actually go and check the data and maybe run some sanity checks on your own prefixes. So now that we talk about all the RIOs, maybe let's talk about what's happening with the Afrinic route objects. So here are some statistics about the Afrinic route objects. So looking at RADB for v4, the same entries, we have around 3,500. The different entries, so not matching, around 5,000 entries, and only in the RIO, which is 94, almost 95,000. For V6, it's the matching entries are 86, and the different entries are 8, and the only in the RIO it's 1,600. So I have the statistics for RDB as well, where the numbers are a bit more. So the idea really is that maybe Afrinic, with the help of their members, can start doing some sanity checks and do some data cleaning. So you know that Afrinic RIO is already mirrored by different IRRs. So there's no point really keeping objects in different IRRs. So if you create your objects in a proper way and make sure it is updated and everything in the Afrinic IRR, then you can perhaps go and delete your old entries in the different so we want to further analyze this data. For example, we want to have a per ASN or a per country analysis. produce some stuff on the per network basis. Also compare this with RPKI, because as you know, RPKI has now become, I would say, the de facto or the most secured source of information with regards to routing. So it's good to actually compare what we have in RPKI and what we have in our IRR, and hopefully have the two database match at some point in time. Of course, these are our recommendations, that it is better to rely on the RIR data, because RIRs do those checks before that you create those objects. Of course, we would encourage you to use RPKI, which is a more secure service. And perhaps legacy space holders should be allowed to use RIR and services and RPKI. So I'm speaking here for all the RIRs, so that even legacy space could actually be secure. I hope you found this present. I'll be glad to answer that. Thank you.
Thank you, Amrish, for this